Welcome back with a smiling face. Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. Alpha's Alternative Bride. This is the sequel of Book 2, Mate of the Forbidden Alpha, and Book 1 is The Luna in the Shadows. Blurb. He has an affair. My sister was promised to him as his wife, but I was given to him instead. He doesn't want me. I am not loved by him. So, I ask, why doesn't he just let me go? In the paranormal community, Hunter, the infamous and deadly Alpha, was widely dreaded. Everybody was aware of him and his cruel actions. He had utterly lost it after seeing his friend's death and lived a life solely dedicated to killing. He did all he could to make life easier because it was the only thing that prevented him from dwelling on his deceased buddy. However, he longed for a wife, someone who could be his companion, someone he knew he would never fall in love with because he never wanted to be vulnerable to anyone again. The reason he desired Eden Cross was that he had no affection for her. Instead, when he was given her sister Isabella Cross in her stead, everything changed. Hunter didn't want her because she brought back his feelings, and he despised every second of it. However, because the agreement had already been reached, he was bound by her. Now, he had to combat the overwhelming pull between them, as Hunter had no intention of ever falling in love with Isabella Cross. Episode 1. Isabella Cross, you will replace your sister Eden and marry Hunter. There was a dead silence in the crowd, a silence that traveled all the way to my heart. The quietness did nothing to calm the blood drumming in my ears at the unexpected news. Those were the last words I ever expected to hear. They were words that I didn't know would completely change my life forever. I wasn't the only shocked one in the crowd. My sister Lucy's mouth was wide open as she held onto her husband Austin for support. My other sister Eden had a guilty and horrified look on her face. I could tell that she was already blaming herself for the sudden turn of events. Her mate James had his arms wrapped around her as he sent a deadly glare Hunter's way. When I had helped Eden escape from her own wedding to be with James, the last thing I was expecting was to have to take her place. I knew the council would try something crazy, but this, I wasn't expecting. I understood that they needed to fulfill their end of the deal and get Hunter married to someone linked to the council. I just didn't think that they would be so quick to choose me. I had no idea how to feel about the matter. I realized that no one was saying anything. I had to speak up before Eden said something that could ruin her relationship with her mate. She wouldn't live with herself if she thought that she was destroying my life by being with James. I couldn't let her take that blame. You can't do that! Hunter roared suddenly before I could respond. His voice shook the entire room so much that even some of the servants took a step back. He was angry, I could tell by the way his chest moved and the veins that threatened to pop on his arms. But for some reason I also sensed a hint of panic in his voice. As far as I knew, Hunter never showed any type of emotion. I must be imagining things. His immediate rejection for some reason made my stomach churn uncomfortably. I tried to hide my obvious distress at his words. I hated the look on his face at just the proposal of getting married to me. Was it really that bad to consider being tied to me? I shouldn't care. He was a beast, someone that so many people feared. Then why did his words affect me so much? Why did I want him to happily accept me as his bride? I couldn't understand his actions. What was so wrong with me? I was taught the same skills as my sister. I didn't lack in any of the training the council had given to me. So then why did Hunter oppose this arrangement when he was so willing to get married to my sister? Maybe I already knew the answer but was not willing to accept it. The clues were there, he had the opportunity to marry me but each time he still chose Eden. I didn't know why, but it wasn't me that he wanted. You saw everything. Austin's family has the support of the Blackners. Fighting with all of them combined is a suicide mission. I do what's best for the council and I always have. Eden will stay mated to James. I will not get involved in that and I must apologize for not keeping my promise to you but you must know of my current situation. The prosecutor apologized with no sympathy in his voice whatsoever. If he was trying to gain Hunter's sympathy, he wasn't doing a very good job at it. Isabella has all of the qualities that her sister possesses, there is nothing wrong with her. She will prove just as beneficial to you as Eden would have. The prosecutor made the same exact points that I was currently thinking. I didn't think this day could get any more embarrassing for me than it already was. Hunter's jaw clenched and his hands tightened into fists at his sides. I will not marry Isabella. You have destroyed the relationship that we share by betraying my trust on multiple occasions. First you promised me a bride and then you take her away and offer someone else in her place. Is this how you do business? Do I have to inform everyone in my circle about my experience here? We will like to make up for that. The prosecutor assured Hunter as he tried to calm him down. I was surprised to see this nervous side to him. It was obvious how important keeping Hunter satisfied was to him. If you do not wish to have Isabella, then there are many other women to choose from. I felt an immediate pull at my heart. Other women to choose from? This time I couldn't hide my discomfort at his words. I didn't like the idea of Hunter with another woman. What made my gut twist even more was the fact that Hunter actually seemed open to the idea. He wasn't immediately saying no like what he'd done when the prosecutor had offered me instead of Eden. That was another stab at my pride and I tried to dampen down the horrible feeling of being unwanted. Victor! He roared. Bring in the rest of women, let them stand in a line before Hunter. He will choose whom he will carry home. I couldn't believe this was actually happening to me. Hunter was so against marrying me that he was willing to choose any other woman that wasn't me? I watched on in horror as he studied each of them one by one. I couldn't believe this. He was actually about to choose someone over me. The women all flushed as he moved his gaze over them and I felt like was about to throw up at the sight. They were each dressed in elegant but dresses, showing of their figures nicely. Looks like you'll be saved after all, sister. Marcus said with a grin. My brother didn't realize how wrong he was. I wouldn't consider it being saved. A part of me, a part that I wanted to get rid of, desperately wanted this marriage to happen. Hermano squeezed my shoulders. This is the best thing that could happen for our family. First Eden gets to be with James and now you're being freed from a loveless marriage without us having to butt in. I closed my eyes, I should be happy. Yet, I felt sick to my stomach. Anyone else would think that I was praying and thanking the Lord that I didn't have to marry Hunter, when in fact I was doing quite the opposite. I felt my hands begin to tremble as he raised his hand to choose one of the women. You've chosen Amanda. The prosecutor announced as he motioned for Victor to bring the woman closer. Hunter's gaze went from her and then straight to me. In that moment I felt so much emotions move through my body. I was angry, sad, and most of all hurt. Hunter's jaw clenched and he didn't look away from me even when the prosecutor continued to discuss the new wedding arrangements. I guess this isn't bad at all. This will work better for us, as there is already a man that we've promised Isabella to. Now she can marry him as well. The prosecutor continued when no one said anything to his previous statement. It took a moment for his words to settle in, but when they finally did, I felt a chill run straight down my spine. No. I didn't want to marry. At least not someone else. I gasped as a loud menacing growl shook the walls. My eyes immediately traveled towards the source of the sound. Hunter's emotionless eyes grew dark and he turned his penetrating gaze on the prosecutor. Suddenly, the tension in the air had increased 1,000 times more than before. I didn't choose anyone. Hunter roared. The women winced at his tone. If they weren't scared before, this had definitely done the trick. The prosecutor looked shocked by his outburst. I felt all of the blood rush to my cheeks. Hunter's gaze was directly on me now and I couldn't look away even if I wanted to. He always had the ability to hold me in place with his stare. However, I was not prepared for the words that rushed out of his mouth in the smoothest way possible. I will marry Isabella. There were gasps throughout the entire room. Everyone looked completely shocked by this sudden change. Just a minute ago he said that he would not marry me, so what exactly changed now? You just said, the prosecutor started to say. I know what I just said. Hunter growled. We have everything we need right here. I will marry Isabella and her alone. Let's get the wedding over with today. Hunter anxiety was not a usual emotion for me, at least not in the last 5 years. After the death of my mate I'd grown cold and emotionless. It was what I had to do in order to survive heartbreak. This was also something I'd mastered in the past couple of years. It took time, I had to do things I'd never thought I would have ever done in this lifetime, unforgivable deeds that still haunted me. But eventually I'd become the man I needed to be to go through life without constantly feeling bitterness and pain. But for some reason, Isabella Cross had the ability to make all of the walls I'd built around myself feel like absolutely nothing. The girl had it in her to poke at all of my buttons and make me want to feel again. Images of my dead mate flashed before my mind like a curse that wouldn't leave me. I felt immediate anger and regret overpower any other emotion. I'd promised myself to never feel anything for another woman again. It was an oath I'd taken. One that I was willingly breaking. I squeezed my hands into fists, not pleased with what I'd done today. Why did I do it? Why did I go against everything I stood for? What for crying out loud made me accept Isabella as my bride? I still remembered the first time I'd laid my eyes on her. She was like a breath of fresh air. And suddenly, my heart that hadn't moved in years was alive again. It was an emotion I'd chosen to bury the moment I'd realized what it was. It was the reason why I was so desperate to choose Eden over her. I wanted a woman in my life that meant nothing to me, someone that wouldn't cause me pain when she left me behind to pick up all of the broken pieces. I also needed someone that possessed all of the qualities of that of a good wife. I'd had women in my life before, multiple mistresses, but none of them made the lonely feeling go away. Despite having so many women around me, I still felt alone all of the time. It was my main reason for wanting a wife. The loneliness was taking a toll on me and I wanted that feeling to go. Then there was the fact that everyone that had known my late wife kept asking whether or not I was scared of remarrying. No matter where I went, the question always came up. Everyone wanted to know if I had another woman in my life by now. I would hear the whispers of pity in whatever room I entered. I preferred the fear in people's eyes when they saw me. I hated to see that look of pity on their faces. The sudden gasp from everyone in the ballroom was enough to bring me straight out of my dark thoughts. I lifted my gaze from the floor and felt a rush of emotion swirl straight to my head as Isabella made her way down the aisle all dressed up in a pretty white wedding dress. Her long black hair that was usually tied up in a messy bun was left to flow gracefully down her slender back. The dress they'd chosen for her was perfect for her figure. It left me to wonder whether they'd already have this dress prepared for her marriage to that other man the prosecutor had mentioned. I felt instant rage at that reminder. If I hadn't agreed to this wedding, they would have married her off to some other man that wasn't me. Now I was left with the overwhelming knowledge that I'd brought all of this upon myself. I tried to wipe any more emotion from my face as Isabella neared me. Her hands on her father's shook and her eyes were on the ground most of the time. Not once did she look my way and I was grateful for that. Her pretty eyes often left a lasting effect on my body. A feeling that I'd rather not put myself through right now. Her father didn't look happy as he let go of her hands so that she could stand opposite me. Neither did the rest of her family. Her brothers looked like they wanted to murder me and her sisters were in tears. Isabella, on the other hand, I couldn't figure out what she really felt. And she was the one I actually wanted to know about. Did she want this wedding to happen? Should it matter to me? Please hold hands. The frightened marriage officer ordered. It was clear as day that the council had forced the man to be here today. Isabella's hands were shaking as she brought them forward, prompting me to hold them and stop the thing from shaking. I clenched my jaw, angry that the first thing I thought about was stopping her discomfort and fear. I shouldn't care. I shouldn't. Those feelings were quickly replaced by a rush of feverish desire the moment her small warm hands clasped around mine. As the ceremony started, I was suddenly reminded of my first wedding. I tried to ignore the memories I'd worked so hard to bury. In order to do so, I had to focus on the woman in front of me. Weirdly enough, gazing at Isabella Cross worked a lot better than the drinking ever did. It bothered me that even up to now she wasn't looking directly at me. She seemed like she was avoiding my eyes for some reason. I didn't like that. I wanted to know what she was thinking. I wanted to know it so badly that for the rest of the entire ceremony that was all that was on my mind. When it came to putting the ring on her finger, I had to fight my past memories from resurfacing once more. I didn't think remarrying someone would be this difficult. But for some reason, I knew that Isabella helped in some way or the other. I felt a part of me come alive as I slipped the ring in. I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. My body tensed and felt rigid all over. Kiss the bride? I hadn't thought about this before. Kissing Isabella was dangerous. My eyes fell to her pretty pink lips and I had to stop the groan in my mouth. What had I done? There was no one to blame but myself. I'd agreed to this wedding. And now I had to kiss Isabella when that was the one thing I was avoiding. But if I was to do this, I had to do it right. Not when she wouldn't look at me. I bit the inside of my cheek and frowned down at her. Look at me, Isabella. Her entire body went still at my demand. Slowly, she peered up at me with wide, innocent yet dreamy, hard not to lose yourself in eyes. It was in that moment that I knew I'd screwed up big time. Isabella Hunter looked like he was in pain. Physically and emotionally. Was just the thought of kissing me so hard for him to stomach? He'd ordered that I looked at him, and I wondered if this was really what he wanted me to see. That he definitely didn't want to kiss me. Without warning, he gripped my waist with one hand and crashed his lips to mine. I was not prepared for the low growl in the back of his throat the moment our lips connected. And I most definitely was not prepared for the rush of emotion that jammed my heart. I gripped onto his black suit, trying to hold onto something at all of the feelings bombarding my body all at once. To my dismay, he pulled away from me so quickly that I was left to think that my lips had somehow burnt him. I was surprised to see fear in the depths of his eyes. What was he afraid of? Was it possible that I'd read him wrong? Before I had time to ponder on that thought, Hunter grabbed my hand and started to storm out of the ballroom. I looked at all of the shocked faces around me as everyone continued to watch on. Where was he taking me? He stopped in front of the prosecutor with a snare. She's now fully mine. I need your word. The prosecutor nodded his head. She's yours. Just like I promised. The conditions are there for a reason, aren't they? Hunter narrowed his eyes. And what about her mate? I was surprised by Hunter's question. My mate? I hadn't thought about him since the moment Hunter entered my life. He was the one that had captured all of my deep fantasies and desires. At a point in my life I wanted to find my mate, but after seeing what Eden had to go through, I didn't want that anymore. If I felt so strongly for Hunter when it wasn't possible that we could ever be mates, I never wanted to meet the man that was supposed to be my true mate. It would never work out. Especially not when I belonged to Hunter now. The prosecutor glanced at me. Unlike Eden, Isabella never found her mate. Believe me, you have nothing to worry about. You better pray that this time nothing comes up. This time, I'm definitely not letting her go. There will be a war, I promise you that. The prosecutor nodded. I understand, and I promise you that you have nothing to worry about. Hunter took my hand in his and led me out of the castle, practically racing for his car. Wait. I said, pulling my hand out from his strong grip. I need to say goodbye to my family. His eyes narrowed. Make it quick, I've stayed here long enough. It's time for us to go home. I hated to admit it, but I liked the fact that his home was now also mine. Isabella. I spun around to find my entire family right behind of us. I felt tears touch my eyes at the broken looks on each of their faces. I didn't want them to worry about me. Eden pulled me tightly into her arms. I'm so sorry, this is all my fault. I should have never left and put you in this mess. I shook my head. Believe me, you made the right decision. I'll be fine, I promise you. Lucy wiped at her tears. These crazy pregnancy hormones. I'll miss you so much, Isabella. Make sure and visit us often. We will be visiting you as well. Hermano promised with a deadly glare sent in Hunter's way. I nodded, and after saying goodbye to each of my family members, including my beautiful parents, Hunter and I were finally on our way. The trip back to Hunter's home was a quiet one. Neither one of us said anything to the other. There wasn't anything to say really. Clearly, Hunter didn't want to be married to me and I was positive that he would remind me of it every single chance he got. We pulled up to massive white and silver gates that opened the moment the guards saw whom it was. I stared out the window, my eyes glued to my new home. It was beautiful. There were fountains and a beautiful garden to the front. So beautiful and clean that I wanted to run through the grass with my bare feet. This wasn't exactly what I was expecting. I thought Hunter's home would be just as cold and soulless as the council. But it was actually quite the opposite. It was a white mansion that gave the illusion of a warm and peaceful home. I watched as servants came out one by one as soon as the car pulled up to the front door. They'd definitely prepared for our arrival. One of Hunter's men opened the door for us and I quickly slid out, mindful of my steps. There were too many eyes on me and I was scared that I would embarrass myself on my first day here. I paused as a woman around my age slipped past everyone and focused her cold gaze on me. It was clear that she didn't like me. Her gaze lazily traveled to Hunter and a wide smile formed on her face. I took a step back as the woman wrapped her arms around him and laid a kiss on his cheek. It took me a moment to recover from what I'd just seen. "Who is she?" I demanded before I could stop myself. I couldn't believe the disrespect. "This is my mistress, Alice." His mistress? This couldn't be right. Hunter had been looking for a wife when he already had a mistress back home waiting for him? The woman smirked at me with a wicked glint in her eyes. She seemed a little too happy to be someone's mistress. I pressed my lips together and pushed past Hunter and his mistress. I was beyond angry. The jealousy was so strong that I could almost taste the bitterness in my mouth. I hadn't signed up for this. When I'd looked at Hunter, I'd seen someone broken, a hurt man that was hiding behind the pretense of a beast. Now, I wasn't so sure of that. What was I even thinking? Did I really believe that there was a good soft side to Hunter? Why did he even want a wife when he already had a mistress? Couldn't he have let her do all of the things he expected from his wife? The servants' eyes widened when they saw me approach them and they quickly pulled open the front door for me. I wasn't sure where I was heading. I didn't wait for Hunter to guide me. I was furious with him and that poor excuse for a woman. I kept walking until I reached a long stairway. I spotted a male at the front of it. "Hi, I would like some assistance please." His eyes widened when they fell on me and his face flushed pink. Sure." He stuttered. "Isabella." Hunter roared behind of me. The man in front of me trembled at the sight of my now husband. Unlike him, I wasn't the least bit intimidated by Hunter's deep throaty roar. I dared not turn to look at him. However, judging by the way the man scrambled away from me, he was most definitely sending death threats our way. What was even his problem? He was the one that had just introduced me to his mistress of all people. And now I couldn't talk to anyone in the house? I tried to take another step but stopped when I felt his hand on my waist and his hot breath against my neck. I closed my eyes and felt my body shiver as his deep masculine scent clouded my vision and mind. I felt rustling in my skin, a sharp electric pull where his skin touched mine. His hands were on my arms now as he slowly pulled my back towards him so that I was pressed up against his front while his lips were right next to my ear. "You're my wife now, Isabella. Never forget your place." His words angered me. If I was indeed his wife, then why did he just introduce me to his mistress? I held completely still, fighting against the strong attraction between us. "I would like you to show me to my room now. I've had a very long day." Hunter said nothing at that, and to my body's disappointment, he let me go as quickly as he'd reached for me. We walked up the stairs and down to the bedroom furthest from where we were standing. The servants opened the door without us having to do anything, and I quietly got in with Hunter right behind of me. I paused after realizing that there was only one bed situated in the middle of the room. "What is this?" I demanded. "Where am I supposed to sleep?" He quirked a brow and started to unbutton his shirt. "Where else will my wife sleep but in my bed?" I pressed my lips together and crossed my arms over my chest while glaring at him. "Why don't you ask your mistress to sleep here with you? Clearly you don't need a wife." He lifted a brow, surprised by my question. "Do you know what's the definition of a mistress, Isabella?" My eyes widened as he pulled the shirt of his body, revealing the manly chest I'd ever seen on any man before. I hated to admit it, but I was definitely distracted by the current display of muscles and smooth skin. The man was a masterpiece, and I didn't think he understood that. If he did, he wouldn't be standing here wondering what I was staring at. That was definitely the look I got from him. I. Do you have to do that?" He looked puzzled by my question. "Do what?" "Take off your shirt while I'm talking to you. We're now a married couple. You should get used to seeing me from now on." I flushed at his words. Get used to seeing him? I didn't think that was something I would ever get used to. Even the sight of his chest was hard for me to look at. Or stop looking at, as the case may be. "I will be hosting a dinner party tonight in honor of your arrival," he said suddenly. His back was turned to me as he searched inside the closet for a shirt. I bit my lip while his muscles flexed in front of me. I didn't understand why I found everything about him so attractive. "Why are you doing that?" I asked sarcastically. "So that everyone can see that you married me but still have your mistress around? I think I've been embarrassed enough already." "You will attend," Hunter growled. Hunter Isabella was angry. I could sniff the tension in the air, all of which was coming from her. What had her like this? Whatever it was, I was definitely the reason for it. Her anger was directed straight towards me. I wanted to find out and solve the problem for her. I shook my head at that thought. Here I went letting the girl decide my actions again. I'd warned my own self against this. I wouldn't be weak for her. But I hated to admit it. Her anger for some reason turned me on. It awakened the beast inside of me, the wolf that had been bruised before. He wanted her. Just as much as I did. It angered me that she didn't want to attend the party I'd already organized in her honor. She was being intentionally difficult. What angered me more than that was the fact that despite all of this I still wanted to slam her against the wall and press my lips to her neck, where I could easily bite down and... What was I thinking? She turned to me with passion-filled eyes. "I would like to see you try and make me." Isabella, I don't know why I'd said it. Angering the beast was not what I was trying to do. Or maybe that's exactly what I wanted. I was angry that he had a mistress, and in turn I wanted to make him just as angry as I was. Why should I be the only one frustrated over something that I could hardly control? I glared at him from across the room, challenging him to force me to go to that dinner party. He took a step in my direction with determination in his eyes but paused at something. It was only then did I realize someone was knocking on the door. I felt my body stiffen as I saw that woman enter the room. I narrowed my eyes as she walked over to Hunter with a soft smile on her face. "Your presence is needed in the kitchen," she informed him. "The cooks want to know what to prepare for tonight." Hunter turned to me and his penetrating gaze went straight through my feigned calm composure. "Tonight, Isabella. Be ready. I don't want to have to repeat myself again." I watched as he left the room, leaving his mistress behind with me. She turned to me on her heels and eyed me from head to toe. She was quiet as she watched me with bored yet envious eyes. "So you're the woman my Hunter was forced to marry?" she said suddenly, breaking the silence between us. I got up from the bed and pretended like she didn't exist. I knew women like her well. I wasn't about to let her intimidate me even though I was angry about this entire situation. "You're absolutely no one to him, soon you'll realize that on your own," she hissed. I sensed that my attempt to ignore her did well in my favor. However, her words did strike a nerve. I narrowed my eyes and finally gave her the attention that she so desperately wanted. "I don't see a wedding ring on your finger." Her eyes flared. "He's known me way longer than he's known you. Believe me, he will always choose me over you." I quirked a brow and crossed my arms over my chest. "Is that really what you believe? Honey, if you haven't noticed, I'm the one he's married to. I'm the one he's made room for in his bed. I'm the woman he's throwing a dinner party for tonight. If you ask me, you've already been replaced," I said calmly. "I don't understand why a woman such as yourself would settle being someone's mistress, but that really isn't my problem, is it?" I inwardly laughed at the expression on her face. She's the one that wanted to play dirty in the first place. Without another word she stormed out of the bedroom, leaving me alone. This, I was grateful for. I'd had a very long day and I could already tell that I was about to have a long night as well. I crossed my arms over my chest and leaned back against the bed head as I heard Hunter enter the room. This was the first time he'd stepped into the room since our earlier disagreement, and I was preparing whole day for the fight that was about to take place between us. I pretended to be paying attention to the book in front of me, though I didn't have the slightest clue of who was the main character or what the book was even about. "Isabella," Hunter growled. "What do you think you're doing?" I purposely let the robe fall open, revealing the lingerie underneath. I never thought I'd be this bold with anyone, but with Hunter, I always wanted to get a reaction out of him. "Surely you have eyes of your own, I don't need to say anything more." I heard his sharp intake of breath, which in turn made me look in his direction. As soon as I lifted my gaze, I had to fight the moan that threatened to leave my mouth after seeing the hungry look in his eyes. Even though the hunger was there was also a slight hint of irritation on his face. Whoever those people were that he'd invited today, they clearly meant something to him. He seemed restless to introduce me to them. "The guests are already gathering downstairs, Isabella," he said again, this time in a hoarse whisper. "Don't let me come over there." I lifted my gaze to his again, remembering everything that blasted mistress of his had said to me before. Or what? His eyes narrowed and he took fierce steps towards me. Part of me wanted to run and the other half that had a lot more control decided that she wanted to stay and fight. He gripped my hair and lifted me a little off the bed so that we met halfway. "You don't want to play these games with me, Isabella?" he threatened with our lips inches apart. I inhaled his scent and a small whimper escaped my mouth before I could stop it. His eyes darkened a shade and his hands on my hair tightened as he pulled me closer. I felt electric shocks all over my body at our closeness and I could feel my skin grow hot all over. "Hunter, where all?" The man stopped mid-sentence after witnessing the scene before him and I felt my cheeks turn bright red. Hunter growled and covered my body with the sheets. "Get out of here, Harry. You're not going to like what will happen if I have to return here again, Isabella. Trust me." I wanted to tell him that his threat didn't work on me, but my fast-beating heart had already betrayed me. As soon as they both left the room, I angrily pushed out of the bed and grabbed a dress from the closet. Apparently, Hunter had already gotten my measurements from the council before we left and had gotten a few dresses as well as other clothing necessities for me. I had no idea how he'd thought of all of those things so quickly. I also had no idea why he was so anxious to hold this event tonight. After slipping into the dress, I tied my hair into a neat bun and proceeded out of the room. The moment my feet touched the first step and I came into everyone's view, all eyes were on me. It was awkward, especially since the once noisy house had suddenly turned quiet. I held my head high and remembered what I'd been taught back at the council. It was important that I carried myself with grace and did nothing to embarrass neither myself nor Hunter. I found him at the bottom of the stairs staring darkly at me. I tried not to shiver under his hot and needy gaze. I loved the way his eyes traveled down my body a lot more than I wanted to admit. "Everyone," he said as he gently took my hand in his. "This is my wife, Isabella." One by one they all came up to me and introduced themselves. It was hard to keep up with all of the names. Though, a few of them did stand out. The women in Hunter's life were beautiful. But most of them here were already wives of Hunter's friends. At least I think they were his friends. I focused on the man he was speaking to now. He had blonde hair and deep ocean blue eyes. "It's nice to meet you, Isabella," he said. "My name is Bruce." He extended his hand and a growl immediately left Hunter's mouth. Bruce looked startled by Hunter's reaction. He gave him a confused look and gently took his hand back, clearing his throat. "I'm your husband's closest friend. Almost like a brother. I'm happy that he has someone with him now. Someone that could keep him company and take away the lone Bruce." Hunter growled in a warning tone. Before his friend could respond, he was already guiding everyone into the dining room, which was big enough to accommodate all of the guests and even more if we needed to. I tried to remain calm after all of the judgmental gazes sent my way the moment we were all seated. I focused on the food in front of me. There was a huge variety of things to choose from. My eyes traveled to the basket of fruits and I was surprised when Hunter brought it closer to me, almost as if he thought that I wanted it. Our hands touched by mistake and everything completely disappeared around me. As far as I was concerned, it was just Hunter and I in the room now. His eyes found mine and our gazes locked. My lips parted and Hunter followed the small movement, his eyes now focused there. Somehow, his gaze was so searing that it burned straight through me. I'm really happy that you finally decided to move on, Hunter. We were all worried about you. I flushed, suddenly remembering that we were still in a room full of people that didn't know me. Yes, it's nice to see you at least try to make something work again rather than keep blaming yourself for my niece's death. A woman with long blonde hair said suddenly. Her niece? Then she was related to Hunter's late wife. Hunter stiffened at her words and so did everyone else in the room. Clearly no one was expecting her to bring up his past mate when I was around. The tension was so high that some of the guests started to panic. I could see it as clear as day on their faces. Even though no one can replace my Maggie, and even though she's the most beautiful and kind-hearted woman you've ever had in your life, I'm still glad to see that you can give someone else a chance. Though it may not work as well as your last, it can still do something rather than nothing. I pressed my lips together. The woman was definitely trying to insult me in front of all of these people. It wasn't just about protecting her niece's image, she clearly didn't like me. I didn't like this. At least back home I was surrounded by people who cared for me. I mean, no offense to your current wife enough. Hunter roared. I could feel the anger radiating out from him in great waves as he glared at the woman. She looked startled at his reaction. In fact, everyone did. I didn't think anyone expected him to defend me, even I didn't. Especially not when she was praising the wife he had actually cared about. I think we should all just eat, we can have discussions after. Another woman suggested as she grabbed a knife and fork. For the rest of the night, I felt extremely uncomfortable. This was the last thing I was expecting to experience at this party. I was already insecure where Hunter's past was concerned after knowing how much he'd loved his last wife and that it wasn't possible for him to ever love me like that. Now her aunt just proved that to me, and in front of so many people. The dinner couldn't possibly have gone any worse than this. Hunter, I was pissed, and not for the reason I thought I would be. Sheila had some nerve coming up in here and speaking like that in front of Isabella. I wasn't the one to invite her to this dinner party, which alone was highly suspicious. Did she hear about it and come here to stir up trouble on her own? Whatever reason, I didn't appreciate her harsh words and her indirect insult to my wife. I hated the way her face fell the moment Sheila had mentioned Maggie and our past. She made it sound like Isabella had no chance. She made it sound like Isabella wasn't just as beautiful as Maggie was. That thought worried me. I'd never referred to another woman as beautiful as Maggie before. No one ever compared to her beauty, and I didn't think anyone ever would in this lifetime. But as fate would have it, things changed when you least expected it to. Isabella came into my life like a storm, one that I wasn't prepared for, a storm that I was still trying to control. But just like nature, one couldn't possibly control a storm. Just like Isabella was proving that I couldn't control her. I rubbed my eyes and tried to stay calm. Sheila was still Maggie's aunt, someone she loved and cared about. I didn't want to disrespect her in my house. But I also couldn't just allow her to disrespect Isabella either. I saw her getting ready to leave and took 2 strides towards her. We need to talk. Her eyes stayed calm as she wrapped her coat around her body. What do you want to talk about? Stay calm. I needed that reminder every time I thought about the look on Isabella's face the moment she'd mentioned Maggie. You can't say the things that you said in front of Isabella ever again. I don't want you disrespecting her in her own home. Sheila looked offended by my words, but more than that, she seemed genuinely surprised by my outburst. The last I checked, Maggie has always been your main concern. Even after her death. I was just praising my dead niece. How was I in the wrong? She demanded from me. You can praise her without being disrespectful to Isabella. I growled. My patience was on a thin line and I was trying not to cause a scene in front of the other guests, but that was becoming extremely difficult to do. I'm sorry, but if I want to praise my dead niece, that's for me to do. No one will stop me from doing that. Not even you, Hunter. My jaw clenched. Do as you please as long as you never step foot in my house again. Her eyes widened and she clutched her chest. What did you just say to me? Come on, man. Bruce said, interrupting us. How about we take a walk? You look like you need some rest. I pushed away his hold on my shoulder, still extremely pissed. See her out, Bruce. I'm heading back to my room. You may not see me for the rest of the night. I loosened my tie and rushed up the stairs. I had to get away from Sheila before I lost my mind. I had too much to think about right now. I couldn't understand how the fact that Sheila had spoken about Maggie wasn't what had bothered me, instead it was her disrespect to Isabella that completely got to me. Sheila was right. I've always centered my life around Maggie. What had changed now? Isabella, I was exhausted. As it turns out, Hunter's friends were the kinds that stayed up late and partied all night. For some reason, Hunter felt the need to introduce me to every single person. He didn't leave anyone out. After Maggie's aunt had made a big scene, the rest of the night was completely awkward for me. But certain things didn't sit right with me. There was something that everyone was keeping from me about Hunter's first wife. At first I thought that they were afraid to speak about her when Hunter was around, but that didn't seem like the case. When I did find someone willing to talk about her, someone that went by the name of Ariel, the woman said things that I didn't expect her to say. She explained that on the day of Maggie's death, she'd been acting very weird for the entire day. It was like she knew that she would die. The woman claimed that Maggie was looking forward to it. She looked happy that day, in fact a lot more than she usually did when she was with Hunter. I didn't know whether or not I could trust her, however. But if any of that was true, then why on earth would she be happy about dying? If that was me, I wouldn't want to leave Hunter's side. If I knew that I would die and leave him behind, I would completely lose it. I wouldn't be happy about something like that. I remembered the way her aunt had looked at me before she left. I'd never had someone look at me with so much hatred before, not even from Hunter's so-called mistress. Despite all of these things, there was something in me that itched me to find out more. I felt like I was in the dark from a lot of things and desperately wanted to find out what they were. But at the same time, the more I found out about Hunter's past, the more I wished that he would give me the same chance he gave to Maggie. I felt my thoughts leave my body the moment Hunter entered the room. He wasn't looking at me, but I couldn't look away from him. I didn't know why he'd stopped Maggie's aunt from talking today. I found it hard to believe that it was because of me. It made more sense that he didn't want to hear about Maggie with fear of remembering their times together. He looked a lot more tensed now than he'd done earlier today, and that was saying something. I'd done a good job at frustrating him before, but this one wasn't my doing. Without warning, he started unbuttoning his shirt, acting like I wasn't in the room with him. I wanted to say something, but my gaze got stuck, and so did my ability to speak. I felt a sharp need strike my body, and I had to press my legs together to fight it. To my surprise, Hunter's shoulders tensed more than before. It was almost as though he could sense my need for him from all the way over there. But to my surprise, he continued ripping his shirt of his body and dropping it onto the floor. I held my breath as he grabbed a towel from the rack and stepped into the bathroom. I tried to calm my racing heart as well as my raging hormones while I heard the shower start. Images of the water falling onto his short black hair and running down his steamy chest popped into my head. I buried my face against the pillow and bit my lips frustratingly. I couldn't remember ever being this way, but for some reason Hunter had the ability to make my body switch from calm to full-on heated in a split second. I lifted my head as I heard the door open and held my breath when he stepped out with a towel wrapped around his waist, dripping wet from head to toe. He finally lifted his gaze and looked straight ahead. I gulped as our gazes locked. His eyes scanned my body from head to toe, and the look of confusion and pain called out to me. It felt like he was touching me without actually putting his hand on my body. I gripped the sheets under me and held on for my dear life. There was this tick in his sharp jaw, and it did nothing to calm my nerves. And then he started to move, making his way towards me. My heart sped up with each step that he took closer to me. Oh God, what was he planning to do? I held completely still as he reached closer to me. The closer he got, the more his scent consumed my thoughts and body. I tried to focus on anything but the pounding in my chest. It was so loud that I was positive Hunter could hear it without him even trying to. My breath caught in my throat as he lowered himself, his grey eyes blazing like a storm. I didn't want to get lost in them. Didn't want to get lost in him. But my body had a mind of its own, especially when he was this close to me. He didn't take his eyes off me, not once, and I would be lying if I said it didn't turn me on. I felt myself grow wet between the legs and I wanted to scream in frustration. I shouldn't feel this way, my body was such a traitor when it came to this man. I inhaled more of him and almost lost all control before realizing he was no longer looking at me. What was he trying to do? He leaned over me and smoothed the sheets beside me. I tried not to gape at him. I would have believed that he was the calm, unbothered one between the two of us if it wasn't for the constant ticking in his jaw. I know you're not planning on sleeping in the same bed with me. I mumbled after catching my breath again. His muscles bulged as he continued to smooth the sheets, and a small drop of water flowed from his neck straight down his chest and slowly disappeared into that forbidden area hidden by his towel. I gulped and tried to look anywhere but there. My dirty mind wouldn't let me forget about it, however. I shook my head and tried to focus on other important matters. Like Hunter finding somewhere else to sleep tonight. There was no way I would be able to get any sleep with him right next to me looking like a mouth-watering beast. God, even this man's scent was enough to drive a woman crazy. It was crazy to me that anyone would be afraid of him. He was extremely desirable. Was I the only one that saw that? Hunter stopped talking. He growled as he snapped his gaze to me. His eyes were cold and hungry as he stared down at me. His hands were on both sides of me now and they were pressing down on the sheets, sinking the mattress. My breath got stuck in my throat once more and I lost my ability to think clearly with the way he was looking at me. The room was quiet except for the sound of both of our hearts pounding, the rhythm mingling and creating music in my ear. I tried to snap out of the spell he had on me and once more made an attempt to speak. But my eyes widened as his lips crashed down on mine and I couldn't find any more words to say. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't even remember what I was trying to say. This is the second time he's kissed me. Mouth to mouth. Body to body. This time it's a lot more shocking as I wasn't expecting it. The world around me disappears before my eyes and I'm not scared about it. I'm too caught up in the feeling of being kissed by Hunter to care about anything else. I don't know what else to do but to hold on to him and join him for the ride. It's magic. Being kissed by Hunter. It's like you're lost in a deserted island and the sun bathes your skin while the water touches your feet. It's like being in a car and feeling the wind blow your hair. It's like floating in space and seeing the stars in front of you like fireworks in the sky. And then boom! There's this explosion that starts from your heart and travels throughout every single inch of your body. Oh God! What was this man doing to me? Was it healthy to feel this way around someone that didn't belong to you? Hunter buried his hands in my hair and tugged me even closer to him. It felt nice having every part of him molded to every part of my body. I can't help it, I can't help the way he makes me feel. I moaned and ran my hands up his bare chest while trying to keep up with his possessive kiss. His lips placed more pressure on mine before he barged into my mouth with his tongue and tasted me. I whimpered as he groaned and took more than I could ever give. I was hungry for more as I ran my hands all over his chest and grinned my hips against his. Stop moving! He growled against my mouth. Stop moving! Tell that to my desperate body. I ignored him and continued to grind my hips like my life depended on it, unable to stop myself. This wasn't enough, I wanted so much more. Isabella! He growled. My hands traveled up his back and straight through his hair before tugging roughly on it. Mine! 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 Hunter roared before ripping my robe open and diving for my chest. I gasped as his lips found my neck and he started to suck heavily on it. Oh yes! I cried out. I wanted to move the lingerie to the side, wanted so badly to feel his hands on my skin. This wasn't enough. Hunter growled against my neck as he lifted me off the bed so that I was now pressed up against the headboard with my legs wrapped around his waist. I was panting hard as he pressed his body into mine and made a dive for my neck again. I cried out as he lifted both of my hands above my head as I felt his teeth touch me. His body moved so roughly against mine that the bed was shaking with us. I didn't care about any of that, however. I wanted him to bite me, I wanted him to mark me. I felt like screaming when he wouldn't do it. And suddenly there was a bang on the floor. Both of us paused and looked down. There was something like a picture frame laying there. Hunter reached down to the ground and picked the fallen object off the ground. I stared dumbstruck at it to see a woman with her hands wrapped around him with a bright smile. It was like a bucket of ice-cold water dashed to my face. That was her, his dead mate. She was extremely beautiful. Her long blonde hair shone in the bright light and her smile matched that of Hunter's. I'd never seen him look like that around anyone before. I looked away and tried not to cry. Knowing that you felt something for a man that already had his entire heart for another woman was such a horrible feeling. I would never wish that feeling on anyone. I felt Hunter's body tense beside me. I didn't want to look at him. I knew without a doubt that he was already regretting kissing me. I wouldn't be able to stand it if he said those words to me. I didn't want to hear it. Hunter, my hands shook as I crushed the picture frame with my fingers. It took me a while to recover from the shock of what I'd just been doing. I tried to move but I couldn't. I stared at my hands like they weren't mine. The picture of Maggie was staring me straight in the face. Her bright smile was directed at me, but the look in her eyes made me feel guilty. It made me feel like she was looking down and seeing that I was ready to replace her with someone else. My mind completely shut down at those dreaded words. Replace her? What was I thinking? I wasn't thinking. That was it. The moment Isabella started to move against me, I'd lost all control. Everything about her had drawn me in and completely trapped me. When I'd seen her laying there on the bed all flushed and beautiful, my only thought was to kiss her and make her mine. I wanted to mark her so badly it hurt. I was so close to it. There was a small bruise on her neck as proof. A reminder that I'd almost bonded to her without a single thought about Maggie. Oh God, Maggie! What was I doing? Maggie was the only woman for me, the only woman I would ever allow myself to have. I needed to clear my head before I did something that I couldn't undo. Isabella was quiet. I had no idea what she was thinking and I didn't have the strength to ask. I was disappointed and angry with myself. Everything I stood for, everything I've worked so hard for, all of it was almost destroyed because of one woman. I needed to get out of here. Isabella's sweet womanly scent was all around me and it did nothing to help the strong need to claim her. What was it about Isabella Cross that made it so easy for me to forget about the pain and want to move forward? I didn't know the answer to that question. What I did know, however, was that I couldn't let those emotions get to me any more than it already had. Without another thought, I rushed out of the room. I barged into the study and poured myself a drink. I needed to forget about her, forget about the way she made me feel. I needed to do anything to go back to normal. These feelings were dangerous, I had to keep them away from me. I held my head and let out a deep breath. Isabella's taste was still in my mouth and I shuddered at the memory of it all. I stared at the drink in my hand and was unable to take any of it. I couldn't remember the last time I'd ever felt so confused and conflicted. This was the very reason I never wanted to marry Isabella. From the moment I met her I knew that she would turn my life upside down. It turns out that I was absolutely right. When I'd lost Maggie, I made a promise to myself. I would never love another woman again. I made that promise for two reasons. The first one being that I didn't want someone to replace her, I wanted to punish myself for losing her. I should have been there that day. I should have protected her. I'd reached too late, her life had already left her body when I'd gotten there. She was already gone. The second reason was that I didn't ever want to experience pain like that again. I'd fallen for Maggie so easily and I'd lost her just as easily. Now Isabella was tempting me to break that promise. It took all of my self-control to not give in to the temptation. If I hadn't seen that picture earlier tonight, then there was no telling what would have happened in there. I shook my head and tried my best to get her image out of my head. It hadn't even been an entire day with us alone in my home and I was already losing my mind. I felt someone's presence behind me and didn't look back. It wasn't important as long as it wasn't Isabella. "Hunter," Alice whispered as she approached me. I felt my body tense when her hands found my chest. Without thinking twice, I grabbed her hand and pried it off my body. I turned around to face her. She was dressed in a black crop top and shorts. There was no doubt in my mind that she'd come here to seduce me. When I'd brought Isabella back, I'd done everything so quickly that Alice had totally slipped my mind. I didn't think much of it before, but now I knew that with Isabella in my bed and mind, there was no way I would be able to bed another woman. I couldn't even look at Alice. Looking at anyone else made me feel sick to the stomach. The drink was still in my hand, completely untouched, the same way Alice would remain tonight. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice deep with concern. "Nothing." "It doesn't look like nothing," she whispered. "I know tonight must have been very difficult for you. I heard from someone that something happened at the dinner. I don't want to bring it up. But I want you to know that I'm here to help, like I've always been. Let me take care of you, Hunter." She reached for me again and I caught her hands before it got to me. "We need to talk, Alice. This isn't working out." Her eyes widened and she stared at me completely dumbstruck. "What do you mean this isn't working out?" she asked. "What exactly is it that you're referring to?" I sighed and finally took a sip out of the drink. "I do not want a mistress anymore. I don't need one." She gasped and held her chest like it was the end of the world. "You can't be serious. It's been years, Hunter, you've known me for years. I did this for you all along. Why are you denying me now?" I gazed at her. "My mind has already been made up. But because of everything you've done in the past and how well you know everything around the house, I'm not asking you to leave. I need someone to plan events and supervise the rest of servants. You've done it before already and you have the experience that I'm looking for." She gaped at me. "I cannot believe this. You've never turned me down before. What exactly has changed?" she demanded. "Isabella." I frowned. I didn't even have to think about that response. My body and mind were in sync when it concerned her. Isabella, I couldn't sleep. Hunter had left the room like his life had depended on it. I didn't want to admit it, but I was worried about him. Even though I was jealous of the connection that he had with his past wife, I couldn't deny the fact that the woman was now dead and Hunter was left to pick up the pieces. He was obviously struggling. I had no idea what it felt like to lose your mate. But I could only imagine the pain that came along with it. Sighing, I picked myself off the bed and wrapped the robe around my body tightly. Maybe it would be a good idea for me to check on him. I wasn't sure where he'd went, but I should be able to find him if I looked hard enough. I shuddered as my feet touched the cold ground and I quickly wrapped the robe tighter around me. Luckily, I found a maid cleaning the mess that was made earlier from the guests Hunter had invited over. She bowed her head as soon as she saw me. "Can you please tell me where I can find Hunter?" Her eyes widened. "Is he not with you, ma'am?" I shook my head. "He was. But he sort of left in a hurry and I'm unsure where to look for him." "Oh." She whispered deep in thought. I think it's a good idea to look for him in his study. He goes there a lot. I smiled. Thank you so much. The young girl blushed and nodded her head. It was my pleasure. I followed her instructions and found the door she'd mentioned. It was already slightly opened, making me believe that he was indeed in there. I paused at the doorway, not sure on what I would say if I did see him inside. I knew that I wanted to offer my sympathy. I could ask if he wanted to talk about it. Sometimes it was good to talk about the things that were hurting you. If I kept thinking about all of these things, I would never actually make it inside. I peeked into the room, hoping to see him. All thoughts flew straight out of my head at what I saw next. Alice had her arms wrapped around Hunter and it looked like he was also holding onto her. I leaned back against the wall with my hand over my chest. Was this why he'd left our room in such a hurry? In order to come here and be with his mistress? I felt anger course through my veins. I couldn't remember the last time I'd felt this angry about something. How stupid was I to believe that he was hurting and in pain? Why did I even want to come here and comfort him? He seemed to be doing perfectly fine with his god mistress. I flinched when the door closed and Alice walked out. Her eyes found me and she had a smirk on her face. I wanted to slap the look right out of her. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "I should be asking you that question," I snapped. She laughed. "I can see you got to see the last bit of our show." I narrowed my eyes. "What is that supposed to mean?" She straightened her back and played with her hair. "Let's just say I was able to satisfy your husband when you couldn't." I felt the rage within me intensify at her words. "I told you already, Isabella. You can't replace me. He's always going to run to me. He's been doing it since the death of his first wife," she teased. I couldn't stay here and listen to any more of this. I could hear Alice laughing behind me as I made my way back to the room. I was so angry that I could barely see anything in front of me. The anger clouded my vision and my heart. If Hunter and his mistress wanted to play this dangerous game, then I could play as well. I wouldn't rest until I got back at Hunter for tonight. Wouldn't rest. "Hunter," I groaned as the sun kissed my skin. It felt hot and painful everywhere. I rolled onto my back and stayed there completely motionless for a minute. Memories from last night crashed into my mind, causing me to jerk upright. I opened an eye and tried to adjust to the brightness. My eyelids felt heavy and my head hurt everywhere. I looked around me to see that I was still in my study. From the shitty way that I was feeling right now, it was safe to say that I'd drank too much last night and fallen asleep in here. I couldn't remember much. The last thing I remembered was telling Alice to leave when she tried to hug me one last time. I'd already started drinking by then and I had no idea what happened after. Judging by the messed up room, I would guess that I may have fought with the furniture, threw some chairs, broke some glass. I did a lot in here without even realizing it. It's been a while since I'd done something like this. When I'd first lost Maggie, I'd almost destroyed the entire house with rage. Bruce and my sister had to stay with me for months to ensure that I didn't do anything like that again. At least this time I'd limited the damage to one room alone. I sighed and rubbed a hand down my face. I didn't know what I was doing to my life anymore. I'd grown accustomed to not caring about anything or anyone. I knew how to control my temper, but now everything was reversed. I felt like I no longer had control of my own body, and all of it was because of Isabella. Isabella. Her name fell from my lips like music from a violin. I felt rage at my own weakness. I swore to myself never to allow myself to experience anything close to the pain I'd had to endure in the past. I slammed my fist against the wall in anger. I wasn't about to do this to myself again. I would not allow it this time. Isabella, I was still angry after last night. Hunter never came to me and I had no idea what he did last night. Maybe he spent it with his mistress, anything was possible. I grabbed my plate off the table and proceeded to the kitchen. The maid's eyes widened as soon as she saw me walking in and she quickly took the plate from me. "I'll take that, miss. It's really okay, I can do it." She shook her head at me and placed it into the sink. "No, I mustn't let you do that, it's my job." I watched the middle-aged woman closely. She looked like someone who'd been here long enough to remember Hunter's first wife. After seeing the picture of her, I wanted to know much more about her and I knew that Hunter would never tell me. "What do you know about Maggie?" I asked before I could stop myself. Her back stiffened at my question and I could tell that she was hesitant to say anything. "We don't really talk about her around here," she confessed as she started to scrub the plate. She paused and turned to gaze at me. I didn't know what she saw in my expression, but for some reason her entire stance changed. She looked like she was a lot more willing to tell me what she was thinking now than before. "But there's something strange about our last madam. She was never happy. She would act like she was happy around Hunter, but whenever he left she would look a lot happier. All of us could tell that she was trying to portray something to Hunter than what she actually truly was feeling. Everyone in the house saw it except for him. No one dared to say a word, however. He's always been blinded in his love for her, that hasn't changed even up to now. That didn't seem right to me." The woman in the picture looked genuinely happy. This wasn't the first person to tell me this, however. There was something about Maggie that people were keeping from me, nothing about her death seemed normal. Maybe there was a lot more that I didn't know, maybe that was why Hunter was so caught up in her death and unable to move forward from it. I didn't think anyone here would be willing to tell me anything more, however. They seemed uptight and scared whenever I mentioned her. Judging by the way Hunter acted after just seeing her picture, I shouldn't have been surprised at all. "Thank you for telling me this." The woman smiled and her brown eyes twinkled a bit. "I'm glad that Hunter married you, you're a lot nicer than that mistress of his." The reminder of Hunter's mistress was like a cold dash of water to my face. I didn't like that woman. She was the reason I'd chosen to wear my outfit of the day. I was beginning to feel like I'd dressed like this for no reason. Before I got ready this morning, I made sure to choose one of the dresses in my closet. It was a short white dress that exposed my legs and chest area. I couldn't remember ever wearing anything like this before, but I wanted to do anything that I could do to get back at Hunter for last night. I was disappointed when he didn't show up for breakfast, however. According to the maid, he didn't leave his study since last night. I had no idea what he was doing in there for so long. But I was getting impatient waiting to put my plan into motion. My eyes fell to the doorway when I heard the door close. I stared at our new guest. It was the same man from last night, I believe his name was Bruce. Hunter's best friend. I inwardly smiled. This was exactly what I needed to get back at Hunter. If I could flirt with Bruce just a little bit, then I could get a reaction out of Hunter. The only problem was that Hunter wasn't anywhere around. Bruce's eyes widened as they settled on me. "Oh, Isabella," he said as he approached me while giving me a once-over. "Hunter is lucky, isn't he?" I flushed at his words. Apparently I wouldn't need to try that hard to flirt with Hunter's friend. He seemed like he would make it very easy for me. "Where is he anyway?" he asked, looking around us for any sign of my husband. "We're supposed to meet for some business talk earlier today, but he never showed." I shrugged my shoulders. "He slept in his study last night. I haven't seen him since." Bruce looked taken aback by my words. "He didn't sleep in the same room with you on your wedding night?" he asked in disbelief. I felt even worse at his question. "No, Hunter preferred to spend our wedding night with his mistress doing Lord alone knows what. Apparently, he wanted her to satisfy him instead of me. She seemed to be good enough for him, whereas I was nothing of the sort." All of those thoughts ran through my mind, but I held my tongue back from saying anything to Bruce. At the end of the day, Bruce was Hunter's best friend, not mine. Everyone here would favor Hunter over me. Again, I missed my family and the bond that we shared. I wished that they could come visit me even though today was just my second day here. "Did something happen last night?" he asked, concerned. I was sure that he could see through my pain. I didn't try to hide it that well after all. I didn't know whether this was something I should discuss with someone I barely knew. All thoughts flew out of my head as I felt Hunter's presence behind of us. I focused on Bruce without turning around to acknowledge my husband. It was game time. I smoothed his chest and put on my most flirtatious smile. "No. Nothing that you should worry about. But thank you for being so kind to me, Bruce." Bruce looked startled by my sudden change in mood. His eyes went from me to Hunter and I could tell that I'd just put him in a very tight spot. The seconds seemed to tick by as the tension in the room doubled after my risky actions. "Bruce!" Hunter roared, breaking the silence amongst us. "Outside. With me now." His friend looked at him with an innocent smile. "Ah, sure. Let's talk outside." By his expression, I was sure that he understood what was going on now and was happy to leave the room with two of us still in it. As soon as Bruce left, I turned to Hunter. I gave him a once-over and proceeded out of the kitchen. His eyes burned into my skin as I walked past him, and I had to remind myself not to fall for his searing gaze like I always did. Hunter growled and grabbed my arm roughly with his hand, pulling me closer to him. "What is this you're wearing out of our bedroom, Isabella?" he demanded. His warm breath was right above my ear and I shivered at his closeness. I still remembered our time together last night. My body had never felt so alive. I remembered the feel of his big hands all over my body and the way each thrust of his tongue made me feel like I was in a completely different world. I couldn't let my emotions control my body. I needed to stay strong and focus on my plan to make his life miserable. I snapped my head in his direction and glared at him. "It's a dress, Hunter. The last time I checked, it wasn't a crime to wear clothing." His eyes narrowed. "Your whole ass will be out if you bend over just a little. I do not want every man in the god house staring at my wife." I laughed. "What makes you think that you could control me?" I demanded. The last time I checked, Hunter, I'm your wife. Not your slave. His jaw clenched. I never said I don't want to hear anything. Why don't you go to your mistress and control whatever she wears and leave me alone? I pulled my arm out of his grip and stormed out of the room. This was nothing compared to what he'd done to me, and just look at the way he was acting for something so simple. This wasn't over. I wouldn't stop until I drove him completely crazy by the end of today. I stormed into my room, both annoyed and relieved that he didn't follow me up the stairs. I looked through the closet and found what I was looking for a few minutes later. I stared at the pink bikini in my hand and smiled. There was a pool out in the back where Hunter and Bruce were having their business discussion. I was sure that he would be more than thrilled to see his wife walk in with a two-piece bathing suit and taking a swim during his meeting. I took off all of my clothes and slipped into the tiny swimwear. I didn't think getting revenge on him would feel this good. It was like I wanted him to feel what I'd felt after seeing him with his mistress. I knew that two wrongs didn't make a right, but I wanted this a lot more than I was willing to admit. Getting reactions out of Hunter made me happy. Apparently, he was usually this emotionless robot. Everyone around here knew him like that after Maggie died. But for some reason I was able to bring out another side to him. It made me feel powerful to know that I was the only one that could do such a thing. I ignored the looks of the staff as I walked down the stairs and through the back door. The moment I stepped out into the open air, Hunter's body stiffened. His back was turned to me, but I was sure that he could still sense me by the way his body tensed. It amazed me that Hunter could so easily know that I was standing only a few feet away. His body was aware of me just like my body was always aware of him. Bruce's eyes fell on me and his entire face grew red. I watched as he scratched the back of his head and looked away. After his earlier interaction with Hunter, I could tell that he didn't want to do anything to upset him furthermore. Now it was just for Hunter to turn and see what I was wearing. This should be fun. Isabella, turn. Look at me. Look at me. I said the words in my head, but somehow I felt like Hunter could hear it. I felt my heart begin to race as his body shifted and he finally did what I'd been chanting in my head for the last couple of seconds. Everything moved in slow motion then. The clouds shifted in the sky, the trees swayed against the gentle breeze, and Hunter's dark gaze came down on me hard. I felt my body begin to shiver as his grey eyes turned almost black. I'd never felt like this in my entire life like I did right now. His gaze started at my feet and slowly traveled up my body. My legs shook as his eyes reached them and lingered a bit at my bikini line. I couldn't stand still. His gaze swept over my body like I was his next anticipated meal. A meal that he planned on devouring whole. I tried to keep a straight face, but it was very hard to do with the way Hunter looked at me. If I ever had any doubts that he ever desired me, they were all gone now. There was no way that he didn't want me when his eyes shone the way that it did right now. I didn't know why this always happened, but I could feel everything around me slowly begin to fade. It started with Bruce disappearing, followed by the trees and then the pool. It didn't stop until it was just Hunter and I left. My breath hitched as his eyes finally connected with mine. There was so much heat and desire there that I was scared that my entire body would erupt in flames. I couldn't understand this thing between us. Even though he was so far away, it still felt like his hands were on me. The feeling was so strong that I actually believed that he was somehow touching me from where he was standing. I was also sure that if anyone tried to touch me right now they would get burnt or shocked. Or both. And then out of nowhere a loud growl tore from Hunter. My entire world shattered, reminding me of the reality in front of me. His entire body was stiff and he looked like he would explode any second now. He never took his eyes away from me. Not once. And then he started to walk in my direction. There was this determined look in his eyes that forced a shiver down my spine. He was now inches away from my body. Both of us were panting so hard that one would swear that we'd just ran a marathon. Hunter's eyes searched mine for answers that I was sure even I didn't know. "Get inside," he whispered harshly, breaking the silence between us. I looked at him, like really looked. My eyes took in his disheveled hair, his torn shirt, the frown on his mouth. He was a little too calm for my liking. Somehow it felt like the calm before the storm and I wasn't sure that I was prepared for it. I squared my shoulders and faced him full on. "No, Isabella," he growled. "Know that you're playing with fire and you don't want to get burnt. Believe me. You don't want to go down this road." God! Why did his words have such a lasting effect on my body? I had to stop a moan as well as my mouth from saying anything stupid. Something silly like "I want to get burnt as long as it's from you." Really, I didn't know the limits when it came to Hunter. I was still learning about them as the time went by. I shook my head, I couldn't get distracted. "I don't know what you're talking about. I felt like going for a swim and this is why I'm here." "Where the pool is situated," I lied. A muscle ticked in his jaw and I felt like I was very close to pushing every single one of his buttons. "I'm not going to say it again, Isabella," Hunter threatened. "Get inside and put on some god clothes." I put on my fakest smile ever and showed him that I was doing the exact opposite to what he wanted. I started to walk in the direction of the pool. I meant to drive him completely insane and I didn't plan on stopping until I achieved my goal. Everything happened so fast after that. 1 minute I was walking away from Hunter, holding my ground, and the next he had me in his arms and we were climbing up the stairs 2 at a time. I was aware that I was in the air considering he had me over his shoulders, and even though I knew I was playing with fire, I still had my reputation to look out for. I slapped my hands against his back. "Put me down." He didn't say anything. In fact, he didn't even budge from the pounding against his body. It did nothing to him. I wasn't even sure why I was trying anymore. "Hunter!" I shouted. "I said to put me down." I didn't want to make too much noise and draw any more attention to us, but he wasn't listening to me. "I warned you, Isabella. Now stay there and stop talking," he growled. After a few more attempts of trying to escape his strong grasp on me, I finally decided to give up. It was no use, my strength was no match to Hunter's. As we neared our room door, he pushed his foot forward and kicked it open. I pressed my lips together as he dropped me onto the bed. I tried to get up but couldn't when he pushed me back down with his body. His 2 hands were pressed onto the sheets and his face was inches away from mine. I could feel my pulse pounding along with blood drumming against my ear. There was this uncomfortable silence between us and I wanted it to go away. "What is it that you want from me, Isabella?" he whispered with a pained expression on his face. My lips parted from his words and I think I forgot how to breathe. There were many answers to that one question. The truth was that I didn't want just one thing from him. Do you want to drive me insane? He demanded before I could answer his first question. I was startled by his sudden change in tone of voice. If I was being honest, that's exactly what I wanted to do to him. Or is it that you enjoy showing your body to me? He questioned as one of his hand traveled up my legs. I shivered from the electric heat of his touch. I'm still very much a man, Isabella. Be very careful of what you're trying to stir up. If you cross the line, there is no turning back. I take what I want and I don't stop until I've gotten it all. Believe me, there would not be a single inch of your body untouched when I'm done with you. My breath tangled in my throat and I had to gasp in order to breathe again. He gripped my shoulders with both hands and shook my body while his eyes dug into my soul. Answer me. What is it that you want from me? I glared at him. What did I want? I wanted a husband that was loyal to me. A man that wanted me. A man that wasn't still in love with his ex-wife. A man that belonged to me and didn't feel the need to turn to his mistress at night. A man that adored and loved me. I wanted the man in Hunter that I knew was hidden deep down inside of him. There was so much that I wanted to say, but for some reason the words couldn't come out of my mouth. Hunter frowned when I didn't say anything. I tried to push his body away from me but he wouldn't let me. His hands clamped onto my wrist and held them still. Let me go. I hissed. I refuse to be intimate with someone that runs to his mistress and sleeps with her when he already has a wife. I was annoyed by the confused look on Hunter's face. What was there to be confused about? I saw the woman leave his study. I heard what she had to say to me. Then what could he possibly be confused about? You're speaking about Alice. Is there any other mistress that I should know about? I snapped angrily. He shook his head. I didn't. I didn't sleep with Alice last night. I don't know why you would think that. I gave him an incredulous look. Do I look like a joke to you? I demanded. I saw her leave your study yesterday. I came to your room like a fool thinking that you might need someone to talk to. Only to find out that you were in there with your mistress while you both embraced each other. I still remembered the way I felt after seeing him with that woman and hearing what she had to say to me. The strong feelings were enough to dampen the pleasure of having our bodies pressed together. It was the extra fuel I needed to keep going and not back down. There was a hint of realization on his face now and it annoyed me. The fact that he remembered meant that it actually really did happen. I didn't want to admit it, but a small part of me was hoping that he would deny all of this and prove me wrong. Now I was angry at myself for hoping for the best. I knew from the start of the kind of person that he truly was. I should have never expected anything different. I knew better now. I was angry when I shifted my gaze back to his. I tried to move my hands again but they were still pinned by him. Let me go. I threatened when he wouldn't say anything. Hunter, I tried to understand Isabella. She seemed genuinely upset about Alice. I didn't think my mistress would make her feel any type of way unless. I scanned her face, searching for answers. I wanted to tell her the truth. I wanted to see the reaction on her face when she heard what I had to say about what really happened last night. I pushed her arms back and pressed them against the bed with one hand. Listen to me. I insisted with a penetrating gaze. Nothing happened between Alice and me yesterday. Nothing happened because my body wouldn't let me. Ever since you came into my life I've been screwed. You've awakened a part of me that should be dead. A part of me that I've worked so hard to get rid of. I want it to be gone. I want it to be gone because I don't want to feel again. I don't want to put myself through the pain again. For that reason, I will not tell you this. I'll keep this truth to myself. Because Isabella, I will die before I let myself love another woman again. I swallowed and took a close long look at her beneath me. I knew that if anything ever happened to her I would never be able to forgive myself. It would haunt me for the rest of my life. She was beautiful, so breathtakingly beautiful. But more than any of that, Isabella Cross was innocent and pure. She had spirit and strength. There were so many things about her that stood out to me, things that would forever leave a scar in my body. She was still quiet beneath me after trying a couple of times to break free from my hold. No matter how hard she tried, I couldn't find it in myself to let her go. I wanted to hold on tight and keep her close. But at the same time, another part of me screamed danger every time I came into contact with her. Her long lashes framed her beautiful eyes as she peered up at me with parted lips. I could tell that she was finding it hard to trust the words I'd spoken about my mistress. The fact that she'd seen Alice hugging me wasn't helping my case either. Even if you turned her down yesterday, what will stop you from going to her another time? She asked. She's still your mistress. That's what mistresses are there for, you said it yourself. I searched her eyes. She was holding back a lot of emotions from me and I wanted to know what they were. Something told me that I wouldn't be prepared for it however. So I decided to leave it alone at least for now. If I answered Isabella and told her the truth then that would leave room for other discussions that I wasn't willing to have with her. I was trying to keep her away from me for the sake of both of us. Her frown deepened when I didn't answer her and I wasn't prepared for the strength in which she used to push me away this time. I fell on my back onto the bed and peered up at her with hooded eyes. Isabella's body was perfection. I had to stifle a groan at the strong need to have her under my body while I claimed every single part of her own. Seeing her outside in the open for everyone to see her precious bare skin had taken a toll on me. In fact, I wanted to murder anyone who'd looked at her whether intentionally or not. One said person was none other than my best friend. They were a little too friendly with each other for my liking. The thought of her laughing and talking to another man was too much for me to take. I growled as Isabella turned around and gave me a full view of her. I couldn't stop myself as I rushed forward and placed my hand over hers on the door handle. I heard her gasp as I pressed her body up against the door. I was quiet as I pressed my lips to the side of her neck and lingered there for a few seconds. God, her scent was so captivating that it took me a while to gather my train of thoughts. Just like before, every muscle and bone in my body was screaming for me to bite down so hard that she screamed my name. Alice is no longer my mistress. I whispered against her ear. I told her that I just wanted her to be my house planner from now on. That is all that she is. Whether you believe me or not, the choice is yours. I didn't know what made me say those words after convincing myself not to do it just a few minutes ago. Before I had a chance to ponder more on that thought, Isabella turned around to face me with wide eyes. It didn't take long for me to realize that I didn't like the look on her face. It made me feel things that I didn't want to. I couldn't remember the last time a woman had ever looked at me like that. Even Maggie never looked at me the way that she did right now. There was hope and admiration coupled with a few other emotions that I couldn't read. It scared me so much that I knew that I had to leave this room now before I did something incredibly stupid. I will not be home until tomorrow, I said quietly as I slowly moved away from her. The truth was that I didn't need to leave for an entire day, but I wanted to. I couldn't stay tonight in the same bed with Isabella. The taste of her was still embedded in my mind and her scent was so strong that it blinded the rest of my senses. "Where are you going?" she asked. I looked away from her and walked over to the closet, where I had some weapons hidden. I couldn't look at her anymore, it was almost painful for me. "Where are you going?" she demanded from me again. "I have some business to get down to. I'll make sure that all of the maids tend to you while I'm gone," I assured her. The silence that followed bothered me. It bugged me to turn around and find out why she'd gotten so quiet all of a sudden, but I decided that it was probably for the best. When I was finished, I zipped up the bag and rushed for the door. I could see her looking at me from the corner of my eye, and just like before, I wanted to turn and get one last long look at her but refrained from doing so. "I'll see you when I'm back." Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.